My name is Julian Reynolds, and I'm a pharmacist at Reynolds Drug Store in Andrews, South Carolina. My father bought out of Dr. Fleming, who was on Main Street in 1950, and he actually bought it in partnership with Dr. Scott. A short time after that, Dr. Scott had a heart attack, and my dad ended up doing all the work, and he was able to, at a later date, buy Dr. Scott out. So there's been no other ownership other than his until I purchased the business from him. But we moved from Main Street around here in 1959. I was a sophomore in high school at the time. Back then we had a soda fountain, of course, which most drugstores did, and we probably eliminated the drugstore probably 20, 25 years ago. And I was able to buy my dad out probably sometime in the early to mid 80s. And at the current time, I'm in the process of going to a third generation. My sister's daughter, my niece Jessica Legge, is in the process of purchasing the store at this time. I don't really remember or recall giving a whole lot of thought. I think I thought this is what I was supposed to do, is what my dad did. And so we never really discussed it a whole lot. I actually worked here during high school, mainly behind the fountain, dipping ice cream and sandwiches and whatever. But anyway, I went to Wingate College first, which is a university now. That's in right out of Monroe, North Carolina, but it's a town named Wingate. And I really couldn't decide where I wanted to go to school, but I used a compass, and I made a circle, and I told my advisor that the closest junior college to Andrews was the one I was going to. And so that's how I ended up at Wingate. And then I went into pre-pharmacy, which there was only a one-year program up there, but I stayed 2 because I wanted to get a lot of my basic requirements out of the way. And so then after I finished there and got my diploma, I went to the University of South Carolina and spent 4 years there. And in those summers, I spent a lot of time in summer school. I spent some time here. And I actually spent one summer working with McKesson Drug Company in Columbia. That's when they had a district office there. But I don't know, I just always thought it was what I was supposed to do, and I guess my mother and dad kind of led me in this direction. Well, probably the biggest change was computers. It seemed like just a few years before we got computers, people started trying to collect from the insurance companies, and it was really a headache trying to get their records because there's no way to keep the records other than just going through files and pulling them. It was very difficult, and actually the computer was a blessing at the time. In fact, you can't operate without one today because about 85–90% of our business actually is transmitted by computer to some insurance company or somewhere to approve or disapprove of what the individual is receiving. The town has 4 drugstores now, Up until probably about 5 years ago, we only had 3, and really the town has only supported 3 in the past, and one of them has normally struggled. But we've been very successful, and of course hopefully it'll continue to do so. The competitors in the past have normally, of course, starting off was strictly independents. And I think the first chain came into town was Price-Wise, which is a Piggly Wiggly franchise, and we get along with them today. You know, when we out of something, we go to them for it. When they out of something, they come to us for it. And then, of course, after that, then 2 other chains came to town, and the other independents sold out to somebody. And we actually bought out 2 stores over the years ourselves. There was one on Main Street named Collier's. That was the last one we bought out, and the first one we bought out was called Hayes's Drug Store, and it was about a block away from here. Service. I don't it's amazing how many stores have some sign up that relates to discount or cheap or something like that. And I like to feel that we're competitive price-wise, but I think our success is service and being available. And if someone calls us at night, whether they're our customers or not, and it's rare that it happens. It used to happen quite often, but we'll still come. Or I will anyway, I'll put it that way. Well, we used to kind of control our own business. The insurance companies control us now. In fact, because of some federal laws, we were unable to negotiate with insurance companies, so we're really at their mercy. I think some of the chains are able to dickle with them a little bit and try to come up with better. But the hospital's able to negotiate with them, but we aren't. So I've many times I have negative feelings about what's going to happen, and somehow or another we get around it. That changes a good bit. In fact, the prescription department is twice the size it was prior to a year ago. We haven't finished yet. We've still got some work to do on the floor. But we've added more office space, such as this one behind you. And we do Medicare and Medicaid medical equipment billing out of that office. I can remember we didn't even have an office in here. We did everything on the counter. But now we've got 2 people that work in the office. And I mean, if you got to collect to pay your bills. So that's a big change. As far as out front, we've always carried like greeting cards and some candies and some gifts. The back, I guess about 5 to 10 years ago, silver was real popular, and we really did a big business in silver market. But all that's changed. Things have continuously changed. But my wife was real involved with the gift department, and after I guess decided I would go somewhat retire, she decided to back off of some of her duties too, and strictly do billing for medical equipment and diabetes supplies. I remember when we first came around here, even at that time, rather than putting people's merchandise in a bag, you wrapped it in a piece of paper and put tape on it to hold it together. And of course, since then we've got paper bags and then plastic bags, and I think environmentally we need to probably stop with the plastic bags. I think it was a drawing card, but when Hardee's came to town, that's when we got rid of the fountain because we couldn't compete with them. That's just the way those fast food places are. And we've even had people come by here on 5 and 10 years after it's closed and say, where's the fountain? Well, we got rid of it. Well, why'd you do that? And I said, well, you wanted the reason. So I said, you quit coming in here. If we'd had the business, we'd have kept it open. Then McDonald's came and ran Hardee's out of town. Yeah, the town just really isn't big enough to support all this business. I mean, it's just like the pharmacies. I really feel like the chains are, a couple of them may be doing okay. The other one, because they're a national chain, they're making the money up front. Well, I think the main thing to do is you've got to have a need for whatever their product is, and you've got to give service. I think at one time, service was probably the most important thing, and then as the economy changes, a lot of your customers, they start looking for ways to save money. Now, some will stay with you because service. At the same time, some of them, the money is the bottom line, and some can't help it. Some can't help it, and also the insurance companies, some of them require a mail order, and there's no way to compete with that. I mean, if they require it, they require it, and I don't blame anyone for taking advantage of whatever benefits they have from whoever the employer is or the government or whatever. If it requires it, then that's what they have to do. I mean, personally, I don't feel it's right, but anybody would say, well, I can see why you don't, because you lose business from it. But there's no personal contact, and there's no reason that they should be able to buy medication any cheaper than we are. And like I said, the insurance company negotiate the prices. They've negotiated with them. With us, they don't give us an opportunity. I guess I'd have to say I'm thankful that they still allow us to fill the prescriptions. In South Carolina, we have a law that's called any willing provider. And so if I'm willing to accept what the insurance company pays, then they cannot refuse a contract. Some of them are tough, but some of them are very fair. And then I think lately some of your big chains are selling their own insurance, and they allow a bigger discount or a smaller copay if you fill your prescription with them. Can't compete with that either. I pretty much stay concerned for her because I've always heard that a very small percentage of the third generation makes it in a business because businesses change so much from time to time. And all I can do is offer the advice that I can and hope for the best. And she has to work hard, I know that, and she does work hard. It's a big responsibility. 40 hours a week doesn't get it. You got to spend the time. I guess you'd say we're a family-owned business. I had said earlier that I ended up working with my dad and I bought him out. My mother also worked with him the full time as a bookkeeper, and she worked behind the fountain. And when my wife and I first got married, she went to work for school. She taught math, and I told her she just worked 10 years. She wouldn't have to work anymore. And she worked either 10 or 11, I forgot what it was, with the school system. She worked for the public school for a period of time, and then she ended up with a private school in Andrew. And then I think it's the first technician I ever had, Back then, the pharmacists did it all, technician. There was no such thing really as a technician. And anyway, I hired me a technician because mainly we were having to bill Medicaid using a typewriter. And it was right lengthy. In fact, it got so big that I had to hire somebody outside to do it in their home. And then, of course, when the computer came along, that ended that. But anyway, back to my wife. The technician I had was expecting a child. And so she left with intentions of coming back, but the city, up at City Hall, they offered a job that she could get off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that, thinking about a baby at home, I guess, and she wanted to get home as quick as she could, so she didn't come back. And I was in trouble. So I asked my wife to help me out and I could get somebody, and anyway, she never left. And I've always looked at ourselves as a team, and I do this, my mom and dad were also, and now Jessica is in here. Her husband has another job, but he also works in here. So hopefully that team works out. I've had some friends of mine that have other type businesses say, man, I couldn't work with my wife. I mean, they love them, they don't want to work with them. But my wife and I do fine together. I feel real sad for my town, how businesses closed over the years. I can remember when we had like 6 or 7 department stores. I can remember we had like 4 or 5 furniture stores. I mean, Main Street was busy, and I was sad, it just isn't what it used to be. And we still do well. I think the businesses that carry the things that people have to have, like gas stations, grocery stores, drug stores, they go always do well. There's still that competition that some will do better than others. But I don't know, I hate to see our town go down with it. It seems like nowadays everybody, it has nothing to do with our business, but everybody's trying to get in the restaurant business, and you can't have so many restaurants.